right, here we go. How we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Sean Atwood channel. Apologies, late start, but that was through technical error. We're live with Kadaya. We're going to be delving into exposing Illuminati, the island, MK Ultra, her experiences, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you her situation, because I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. So, Kadaya, thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself if you can.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. So I became aware that I was a programmed multiple of MK Ultra a couple of years ago. When I was really suffering some really debilitating illnesses, there were a lot of working diagnoses for disease. I was looking into potential mental illness as a potential for the reason that my body was suffering. And during the process of getting to the root of some of my issues, I started to explore trauma as a root cause. And through the grace of God alone, I believe, and a little bit of memory work, I began to have what is known in the program as flooding. And
Okay.
I had these memories of satanic ritual abuse, and I didn't know what to do.
Okay. Can you describe the flooding process? Also, my camera's still connected. I'm just feeding my
Good.
nicotine habit. So just can you take us through what was like? Was it like a moment where like in a movie where it all flashes in front of you, or what was that like to deal with?
It was horrific. It actually landed me in the psych ward, uh,
Wow.
6 days. And
Yeah.
so
Wow.
flashbacks. So what happens is the body keeps the score as well, right? So I'm getting body memories. I'm
Hmm.
having bruises from past traumas surface on my skin. I'm getting electrode burns showing up on my hands and
Wow.
feet as a result of having been through electroshock torture. I'm having horrific memories of a particular family member being violently raped by another family member at a sleepover. And these are coming in, right? And I am, of course, starting at the same time the flooding is coming in. There is a sabotage program that they put in programmed multiples to also cause short term amnesia. So I was found basically walking into walls in my own home, crying out for help, but nobody believed me, right? Even I even went to the police, and they didn't believe me either. I said I'm being abused, sexually abused, my children as well. And but then the amnesia programming would kick in, and I wouldn't remember any of the details, and I would just be confused. And the horror of all of these memories coming back was so traumatic that I wanted to be mentally ill. I wanted it to be schizophrenia, because the horror of the
Mm.
reality of living with multiple lives under the veneer of a surface. I was a mom of two, white picket fence life. I had been a school teacher. I was a floral designer, a photographer, a good Christian, involved in ministry. But meanwhile, I have all of these secret lives that are happening under mind control that I have no idea. So I had gone to my husband, I had gone to pastors, I had gone to the police during this process, and nobody believed me. They thought I was having a psychosis. I said, I hope I'm having a psychosis. Great. Give me some medication, give me some diagnosis, just make this nightmare stop. And when I was in the psych ward, they couldn't come up with any definitive diagnosis. So I left 6 days later, having to basically repress all of those memories again while I figured out how I was going to escape this nightmare.
Damn. Sorry, that's a lot. I was deep in focus with you there, Kadaya. Now,
Mhm.
bigger picture here is obviously how the hell do you trust anyone in your life, first of all? Second of all, do you feel like this has been going on since you were a child? Do you feel like you were selected at birth, part of a system, part of a process? And if so, how much of your life do you feel you've made choices on?
I had almost no agency at all, as it turned out. I was actually bred for the program from the point of conception
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
in a laboratory. where they were doing genetic experimentation in order to yoke me with very desirable Illuminati bloodlines. And and so it was from the womb. They do electroshock torture even to the fetus. They use a combination of both electroshock and water to even stimulate the sexual organs of the fetus to just create all kinds of sexual abuse and
Mhm.
fragment the child, even from utero, into splits, into split personalities to fragment that soul. So right from the beginning, I was bred for it.
Mhm. I mean, again, a lot of people find it shocking when people talk about purposely bred individuals. But when you think about the criminal pyramid, it makes way more sense to grow your own than to be constantly stealing, transporting. And do you think we're talking about crazy, mad scientist elites or government program when it comes to you?
Both,
Okay.
very much both. So my father is an internationally renowned programmer. And so I grew up going to a few different rituals. They included the Canadian CIA, which is CSIS. It is also involved with the KKK as well,
Hmm.
the Skull and Bones,
Hmm.
um, and just the Illuminati as well. And I was trafficked to all of these different cults for not just for the purpose of sexual abuse, but also to help program their own children. So I was programmed to be a
Normalizing it, sort of
programmer.
thing. Yeah. Hmm. When you say programmer, right, just for the sake of people watching this back who maybe this is the first time, they've heard about MK Ultra, they're dipping their toe in. Can you take us through what it means to be, like your dad, the best programmer, and for you yourself to be drawn into being weaponized? Can you
Yeah.
just take us through what that means? Is it like is it in the realm of grooming? Like, take us through what it is.
Yeah. Um, Grooming is definitely a part of it, but because I was fractured into split personalities from
Hmm.
such a young age, he knew how to activate those personalities to come forward for training or to endure um, horrific abuse. And once you fracture a person, a child, it's easier to fracture them over and over and over again. Like if you break a rock into two pieces, those, it's easier to break them down into smaller and smaller fragments.
Hmm. It's a
So
great analogy.
a
Sadly.
pact with a thousand fractures,
Hmm.
some like full personalities, but then also some fractures, right? And so what they do, what my father had was a little black book, and this is common, of the events, the traumas that took place, the rituals that happened through drowning, electroshock torture, extraction of adrenochrome through terror, lots of strangulation, all of these things that they do to break down your psyche to make it easier to behaviorally condition you. He keeps track in a little black book of the personalities, their names, and the codes and the cues and triggers that bring them out, whether it's a smell, whether it's music, whether it's a phrase from a
Yeah.
children's book that he
Hmm.
used. Dr. Seuss was used a lot in my programming. So there were a lot of keys
Interesting.
in lines of Dr. Seuss that he would use to bring those out to send me on assignments, whether it was for sex work, whether it was for espionage, whether it was for assassination, whether it was as a courier. Um, there is no end to it.
Yeah, and the little black books, the trigger words, the multiple personalities, right? This is the spear tip on these people's and with their weapons for individuals who are living in the world. Okay, by weaponizing DID and this fragmentation of the mind, it's a hopeless fight for justice. It really, really is, and it's a horrifying realization for how much SRA and this sort of thing takes place, and how prevalent DID is as a weapon for for stunting any form of justice after the fact. And when you were talking there about the multiple personalities being brought out, when you have the flashbacks, right, when these things came flooding back originally, Was it the memories of the altar that was coming forward? And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So
yeah, it was. It is that. Okay, okay,
I-
okay,
the first part that came forward um, was a personality by the name of Tetris. And
okay.
Tetris was programmed to collect information and data from my life, from my daily activities, and from my thoughts, and organize them in a way just like the way that Tetris works, organize them in a way to create walls of amnesic barriers between parts in my mind so that I would have a plausible narrative and a plausible understanding for my life, a cover story that made sense to me, that made sense to others, so that myself and my parts and others wouldn't actually know what was really going on. And so, through the power of prayer and the blood of Jesus Christ, who I love with everything that I have, I would not be alive or have endured this without him. Through
Yeah,
that
Jesus,
process,
Jesus is a cool guy. We're
um,
on good grounds with Jesus here too. Don't worry.
yeah, yeah, well, hallelujah. So those walls started to come down, and I began to wail. I could not move. I was paralyzed.
Hmm.
I was crippled, and I felt basically still a veil around some memories and some things pertaining to pedophilia in my life and worse that I did not even want to know about. But this part, Tetris, had been carrying all of this pain and all of this trauma and putting up these walls of dissociation basically to protect me and help me to survive all of this. And so when these walls came down and this she came forward just in horror with the story of my life. But it was so debilitating and traumatic that those walls immediately came back up until I was in a safer place, away from handlers, away from programmers, where it was safe to bring them down more slowly,
Hmm.
way that was more manageable to process.
Well, here's the thing. The only thing I can compare what you're describing is, when you remember something, right, that you forgot that you had to do, and you get that rush of emotion, and everything changes in the instant you remember that. And that's one snippet of a memory. And you've got a life of memories coming back in the same way. Like, I can't believe that it was 6 days that you were talking to a wall for. I can't believe that anyone's capable of coping with that data infusion. I mean, because again, remembering something and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's midnight, I need to put the trash out or whatever. That's
Yeah,
one little thing. And look at the difference and the change and the energy shift in you. So being able to try and deal with anything more than remembering to put the bins out, I don't think we're programmed for that, right? We're not, it's not meant to be that way. And when you talk about the altars, when they came forward, is it, how would you describe, and I'm sorry if this is something that is something
mm,
that you're not meant to ask, but
wait, ask away.
do you feel like you're stood beside yourself? Do you feel like within your mind there is a like I recognize you, or something like that when it happens? How do you feel inside yourself in that moment, Kadai?
Before understood the fullness of what was going on, I used to describe it like I felt like I was being hijacked in my body, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where I
Wow.
would be kind of thrown into the back seat and somebody else would take over. And so I sought like deliverance. I'm thinking I'm under
Wow.
demonic oppression. I'm thinking it's
Yeah.
just that, like I'm possessed or something, because I can't manage
Wow.
these impulses of like
Mm-hmm.
this despair, the hopelessness, the um
Yeah.
the rage that I was experiencing, the just all the alcohol that I parts of my personality were drinking in order to manage that. And so I would really feel like kind of hijacked by that. Now that I've been working through some integration, it's a little bit different. I feel more like if an altar comes forward, I'm in the passenger seat and I'm able to engage with an altar, kind of coach and work with them a little bit, even if they're driving. I don't feel as out of control as I did because my personalities are starting to come into unity and actually work together. But one of the things that's so interesting is that I really thought for a lot of years, even when these things felt like they were taking over, they still felt like me. And that's really common in a shell
Mm-hmm.
system that's designed in organized ritual abuse, to have a shell operator who's kind of like the secretary, the person out front, and then you have like a panel of parts going around in a carousel underneath, that the front part is kind of seamlessly covering for in a way. And it's not like meant in a intentionally to be deceptive or manipulative or deceiving, because the front shell operator is programmed to not know about the insiders, and the insiders are programmed to make sure that the shell operator doesn't know that they're backseat driving my
Mm-hmm.
emotions, my thoughts, my opinions,
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, and behaviors.
Fuck. Like when we talk about mind control, right? And we see it in the movies, and there's all this stuff, right? And you hear the reality of creating a person and inserting that person into another person, okay? And using words, sounds, smells, like you said, to draw that person forward. I honestly don't think our brains can comprehend the level of just how terrifying the way they've perfected this is, Kadaya.
It
Okay.
is. It's high level evil genius. It is so mind
Mm-hmm.
boggling what the mind is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they have learned to manipulate the God given gift of dissociation, the way they've learned to manipulate it, I mean, it can only come honestly from the fallen kingdom and demonic realm and like fallen knowledge. Like I don't even think human beings are capable of this level of understanding how this works, and that's why in the cult and a lot of these programmers and in the network, they're always invoking different deities, different entities, because they want satanic knowledge on how to do mind control, and it goes back way further than
Mm-hmm.
the World War II and the Nazis. Yeah, very
Oh yeah.
complex.
Never have rung true the words of Peter Parker's uncle that with great power comes great responsibility. And the knowledge that all of the evildoers use, there's got to be a balance, right? Because if MK Ultra is the evil end of the stick, what's the opposite end of the stick? Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And because that's how the world exists. But the problem that I have is I believe that evil only exists in mankind. It's the manifestation of the acts of man, right? And whether it's demonic, whether it's the reptilians, whether it's just poor decision making, we are the weird spot in all the life in this world, because good and bad is the balance, the yin and the yang, but evil shouldn't exist, Kadaya. And it seems like it's all that exists once you get into the higher echelons, the people making decisions, the people in control. And I think a lot of people feel hopeless that where do we go now that we have this knowledge, because it's been out for so long. MK Ultra's been, I mean, it's old news, right? I mean, it's the oldest thing that people have been talking about, and I think people think that's where it ended, right?
Yeah.
But tell us just how widespread and current this is.
It is rampant. It is more people are under mind control than not. And I'm talking about like ritual abuse, mind control, and then the rest of the world is under at least mind control and programming just from the indoctrination of the school system, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
churches, the media, the internet. It is so pervasive and so complex, and it is easy to despair. And one of the reasons I'm so I love the Bible so much is because it contextualizes this. It says Satan is the god of this world. And so when we wake up to the delusion that he has cast over humanity, we have, like you said, we have to look at the other end of the spectrum. We have to look, okay, well then if there's dark, there's light. If there's evil, then there's righteousness. If there's Satan, there's God, right? And so one of the things that I have started on my Telegram channel at the Song of the Lamb, the Second Exodus, is to offer people a hope for just such a complex situation, because mind control is so complex that even the resources that are most of the resources that are out there, and there are a lot of great resources, they don't get deep enough. People only really get an illusion of healing, an illusion of freedom. They do get some to a degree, but not to the deeper layers. And so the hope that I hold out is just like, even though the horrors are complicated, the answer in Christ and the gospel is simple, and he is completely able and sufficient to do all of it. And that has been such a relief for me and such an unburdening for me in my own walk as I have sought him and his truth and his word. He has been deprogramming me. He's been integrating me. He's been healing me. He's been casting out demons. He's been breaking generational curses. And I can't do it on my own. It is all by the power of his spirit alone.
Mm-hmm. See, I completely agree with you. I'm the furthest thing from a Christian. I'm on a very good level with Jesus. I believe in a lot of deities, and I follow my deities, and I'm on a good I'm on a good terms with Jesus, right? And the problem is, Jesus will try and love you, his enemies, to death. He will defeat his enemies through love. And the problem is, when you're dealing with a psychopath, there's nothing there for Jesus to grow love into. And I have an argument that Jesus is an incredible person to lead the world after the evil's been eliminated, because you cannot love away evil. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think barbarians, okay, that fight for the light, okay, are what's going to come in first and clear the way. I really, really do, because some things are so dark.
Yeah.
Love, it would be like throwing a tissue at the sun and expecting the tissue to land. That's what throwing love at these people is like. They're not like us, Kadaya. They don't look at a kitten and go, it's adorable. They don't do that, okay? They twist their heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference. And when we get on that spiritual level, I'm very much of the group of everyone's allowed their own God. Every God exists. They're like tools in a toolbox, and they represent different parts of time where they were needed for that particular man. So I'm fully on board with Jesus taking over once the evil's gone 100%, because he's a cool guy. All right, I'm down with him. He's a nice guy. 100%.
There's something significant though in these programs.
Tell us.
And over again. What they do is punish faith in Jesus Christ and use false Jesus to, like, I was raped by a false Jesus. I went through the most sadistic crucifixion ceremonies. They are obsessed with coming in between a child finding Jesus. And this is where Sean will disagree. I believe the only way to God is through his son Jesus Christ. But it is significant. It is significant that they just
It's
rail against Jesus alone in these
absolutely on point, Kadaya. You got to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Okay. His father is a nameless God that was put forward in a book written by man. Jesus is he was a dude. He was walking around, he was doing stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? He was miracle over there, bit of a freaking multiple fish and wine over here. He was a real deal. So why would you want to get between him and Jesus? You would go after the real God, right? The big God, his dad. So it's interesting that a nameless God has been pushed on the world when his son is the one that should be followed. The nameless God. If I tell you to come into a mega church, Kadaya, and tell you about the one true God and never name him and have you in worship of him, how can you be sure who you're worshiping? Jesus, and naming Jesus in this is a good bit of evidence that Jesus is the real deal when it comes to the Christian faith and why they want to separate you from him as opposed to separating you from his dad, which is interesting to me.
And the Bible was used in programming extensively. It was for me, it is for a lot of people. And so we have to ask why. What are they're trying to stand in the way of the narrow gate because they are terrified of the return of Jesus Christ. They're terrified. They're so terrified of it. They're doing, they're opening Hadron Colliders and trying to do timeline switches and jumps, anything that they can do to try to commandeer the timeline of humanity to avoid the great and terrible and dreadful day of the Lord. Things that they did with me in my programming.
Yeah.
surrounding the Bible and Jesus is they would have what they would do, and this is really, really, really common. It's like across the board almost, especially for CIA churches, and I grew up in one of
Hmm.
them in a CIA Christian school. They would have they would have you call on Jesus for help as a
Hmm.
child. 3, 4 years old, they tell you to call on him for help. Sometimes he would, and they would have a costume Jesus who would sometimes come in and help, sometimes come in and rape you, sometimes come in and participate, sometimes disappear. And so it creates like this complexity. And it's like, again, why? I mean, but thankfully it ended up working for good because I was able to get my hands on the Word of God, and He corrected the false perception that I had gained of Him over the years through programming that had stuck
It's wild.
in my subconscious that were keeping me bound.
Do you know that part of your story goes into a section of my research in my brain where it's like, why is it always Christian gods called upon during exorcisms and demonic things? It seems to be, and don't get me wrong, there's religion specific things where those religions deal with their spiritual issues, right? But it seems to be really Christian heavy when it comes to the demonic, right? And I'll be honest, that information about the separation and the naming of Jesus and the separation and the giving you hope to then send in that individual to abuse you as a child, right?
Yeah.
It's further just battering home. I mean, I hate to get biblical, but the antichrist, right? I mean, it's the opposite of what that man stood for, 100%. And
Yeah.
it's scary to think that there's so much we don't know about the mystic things of this world. And in fact, Jesus has always fascinated me. But look, that's not the we can talk about Jesus in our time, right? He's a big shout out Jesus, right? And the Illuminati, the MK Ultra, right? So you have been chosen, born, and put into this program. You've been programmed. You've gone through your life, living your life. All of a sudden, wham! All of this information comes through. What memories came through that you were like, oh my God, that's this person, that person that I remember I've seen that location on the TV. Like, did you start wondering if
Yeah.
because I imagine it's very different remembering an alter's memory injection than your brain going, okay, so you've seen Naomi Campbell's Island in this documentary and this news clip, let's just smash them together. I feel like it's a very different process. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but I imagine it's a very different feeling for you differentiating the two, is what I'm meaning.
Yes, and it's important because they do a lot. There is a lot of simulation that is done in programming, and intentional simulations are done in order to that are activated if a person starts to remember real trauma. Those simulations are activated, that are often done under the manipulation of drugs to basically like discredit a person, you know. So you might have a false memory of having killed somebody, and then you discover like you're talking about it, or you had to do this under mind control, and then they'll say, no, look, this person is actually still alive. And then it causes you to doubt everything, right? And so there's like this big process of gaslighting. I haven't come across that yet personally that I know of, but I just want to mention it because I know that it's common. But yeah, it's hard to believe some of the memories as they come in at first. But again, the body keeps the score. And so you can actually feel in your body where those memories are trapped, and the body doesn't lie. So, a couple examples like Epstein Island. Um, the hardest thing, I had a memory of being at Epstein Island with my 2 year old. And I was able to confirm a location in Bellingham, Washington, um, that was doing business with him, on his list that was disclosed, and that's where I was living with my sons, and my husband at the time. Um, a couple celebrities, from my childhood: Robin Williams, Owen Wilson, He would make us as children watch him do bestiality with his dog. Um, I was trafficked to Steve Martin. Um, the Queen, I met at her an event in Victoria, BC in 2002. I was able to confirm through photos of myself in Victoria that she was indeed there at that time. The entity that we call the Queen, um, it like people think you're crazy. Like I'm talking shape shifting. I'm talking rape. I'm talking being drugged with scopolamine.
Yes, preaching to the
Talking
choir. We
ayahuasca
get you.
being
Yeah,
used.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like everything you've said, I would quite happily sit here and agree fully and back. I could give me an hour and I'll slap a PowerPoint presentation together on how all of this makes sense. And the royals are, I mean, there's a reason why most of the presidents have got a blood lineage back to the Queen. And it's interesting, right? Because since the Queen died, right? Since the Queen died, the world's gone a bit crazy, Kadaya. Like the world seems to have gotten a lot worse. So
Yeah.
I imagine she was a mental case that everyone was terrified of in the elitist world because I feel like they've all just run amok
Yeah.
since she passed. So I don't know if she was like the overlord dragon monster or whatever. I don't mean that to ridicule. I mean genuinely because
Yes. Well,
yeah.
I mean, the amount of coaching and that I had to go through in order to learn how to greet her and meet her properly was really like intimidating. It was like I felt like if I had done one wrong thing, what's going to happen? It just seemed to me at the time. Of course, I'm 15 years old. I think I'm just meeting the Queen, and it's a prestigious opportunity. I was in an altar, obviously, who had been told, who had different memories than what I have. Um, but yeah, like they taught me how to greet her. Like I remember being so thirsty because I had been drugged with scopolamine and I like wasn't even allowed to have
Mhm.
a water bottle because it wasn't polite. And so everybody was just like fawning. But it was fear. It really was fear. So that's an interesting point you make.
Because for me, I feel like whatever the horrible things that happened there, okay, those are the real memories, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I almost feel like why would they waste their time with a social nice part of this? I would just invent that part and slap it in your head so that when you start remembering stuff, you've got some nice things to remember. Or maybe by having you do those nice things, it's part of the programming. So maybe I'm misinterpreting the evil system here
It's
because
part, it's part of
that it
programming.
must be it must be part of the fail-safe thing you said about, right? So have a nice memory in the same data capture as the horrible stuff, so that hopefully 9 times out of 10 your brain stops at the nice stuff. Is that basically the layman's terms?
Exactly, exactly. And the way that they will structure a multiple personality system for mind control
Hmm.
is that different parts come out at different stages of the interaction. So you would have the person, like I would have the personality that met the Queen, and
Hmm.
then the personality that came out for the horrors that I later endured with her presence. So I was used as a breeder. And
It
so,
sounds.
yeah,
Could we, I'm sorry, no, could we just describe this as any standard business management structure? You've got the main all at the top that controls them all. You've got the ones that clean up the mess at the bottom. Then you've got the ones that supervise the ones keeping the mess, under wraps. And then we've got, do you see what I'm saying? That
yes,
supervisor on supervisor on supervisor. Sorry to use stupid analogies, but
no,
it really helps me understand when I break it down as if I'm explaining it to an 8-year-old, because
mhm.
that's what it sounds like. But that's how obviously you would do that, right? Obviously, if you can, I mean, week one of MK Ultra, slap one of them in, right? And then you're like, well, Gerald, do you think we could put another one in to control this one and see what happens? And this is where it snowballed to, right? I mean, this is because it makes sense as an evil monster. It makes sense to just whack a bunch of people in there that I control to control the people that might try and run amok.
Yes, and I've referred to my own internal system that they programmed often as the bureau, And that's exactly how a lot of it operates. And
Yeah.
I have multiple levels to my system. I have a castle, I have a labyrinth, I have a bureau, which is an office, I have a circus, I have a pirate ship, I have the entire world of Avalon from the King Arthur series. Like, they just put it in this, they just create this map, but it very much does function that way, right down to the creation in the psyche, where they store memories in file folders and drawers. And only
Hmm.
certain parts are the secretaries and the librarians that, if you can access them, can pull out the records of the memories that happened and which parts were present at what time,
Yo,
age, dates, settings, locations, etc.
honestly, it's this conversation with you, Kadaya, is putting things, it's piecing some stuff together, and I'm having these little moments as we're talking because, like, the end result of this has to be me sitting in an office, connecting to a machine, and then being able to control you from afar, right? I feel like this method of destroying and programming is too long-winded for their evil mindsets now, right? So then when you factor that in and you think of the chips that are being put in people's heads and all this stuff, and there's a movie by Steven Spielberg coming out called Disclosure Day, and in the trailer, you know how they love showing us stuff, it shows a man in a chair and he goes into the head of somebody and convinces them of their surroundings. And I think that is the foreshadowing for what will be the new conspiracy in 10 years when technology is integrated with this. Would you back up the theory that if they could create a shortcut to just controlling us when it comes to abuse, it comes to, assassinations, wherever you want to throw in an operator to be, do you think that they would much rather have that quick cut to the chase factor?
Yes, and they've already done it because they've learned not just through technology, but to create a DID system of an unaware programmed multiple slave, um, to basically self-police. And so, like, we have so, like, in my system, I have a part who is literally my father and programmer, who will reprogram other parts, protectors, gatekeepers. And yeah, the technology and AI is hugely involved. I'm sharing some footage of another survivor, who was
Hmm.
a training partner in the CIA Project IBIS, Project Montauk. I'm sharing some video footage of shortly in the Telegram of his own deactivation, um, through the power of God, from AI technology, and what was happening in his body, how it manifested, what it looked like. And so, yeah, the hive mind, we're already in it.
Okay. How prevalent, and I'm just going to say this, how prevalent is frequency in all of this? When people talk of, okay, because for me, when we talk about the power of God, right,
Hmm.
a lot of the time people put that down to frequency. You're taking yourself to a higher or lower frequency. But people laugh their ass off because it's that simple, right? But
Right.
it is. And the biggest illusion is how much control they have and how much we think it's this unobtainable illusion, and that's why we write it off. But in actual fact, the frequency in which we exist can trigger and release things that were stored away. And it's very, very, very telling on the power of faith for people that have that, and what
Yeah.
it can do when you have belief in it, people. Okay? It's not about going, oh, yeah, I kind of think this. When you believe it, your intentions become true and your reality is shaped by your pure beliefs. And if you've been programmed, governmentally funded programming to destroy all of this and keep you away from it, there finding your way back to that must, what was it like for you when your frequency shifted and you felt, I don't even know what the next word is, the light, the positive, because I imagine for you that was not present. for a long time, right?
You know, they've done some studies that show what the most powerful frequency in the world is, and I had guessed love. I thought maybe it was laughter, like the most powerful frequency in a human emotion or human characteristic or whatever it is we're emanating. And the most powerful frequency is authenticity, which is
Mhm.
truth. And the reason it's so powerful is because we are living in a world that is under a huge veil of delusion, and they've put low demonic, crazy making, sick making frequencies in our music, that affect our mind, our soul, and our body. One of the things that is done in the programming, pertaining to frequency, is called message in a bottle programming.
Hmm.
So you
Okay.
have, and this, you know, the Police song "Message in a Bottle," Taylor Swift, even the Christina Aguilera song "Genie in a Bottle." It's all part of this conspiracy, right?
Okay.
Which is true. And what is done in this programming is through torture. Um, is they put fractures of the soul, the mind, and the psyche into these glass bottles, like a glass bottle at sea with a message
Hmm.
that is lost forever, that nobody can hear and nobody can
Hmm.
receive. So a lot of survivors have this frequency in their body called silent scream. Those It's like I'm screaming under the surface, even if I'm smiling. There are
Hmm.
clients that are screaming because of what they've experienced, what they know is going on, and nobody knows. So that frequency is basically internalized and turned inward into the body to create disease. And so one of the things that I've been doing on the Telegram channel, working with other survivors that have gone through this, is coming up with renunciations and deactivations for these frequencies that are causing a lot of illnesses that doctors are saying is Lyme disease, um, uh, autoimmune disease, cancer causing, also
Hmm.
like all of these things that are causing decay and corruption in the body are
Hmm.
due to
Yeah.
frequencies. So when the truth came in and the light came in, um, those frequencies were overpowered. And I actually even listen to 444 hertz music a lot. A lot of people will believe that it's like the King David in the Bible that soothed the demonically tormented King Saul when he was in a murderous rage and he couldn't sleep. David would come in and play his harp. And so 444 hertz music has been another tool that's helped with bringing forward memories and soothing the body, and doing just the hard grunt work of what it's like to defect and deprogram. It's just been a tremendous gift to me. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think, right? Before I just side quest in our podcast here, right? Can we cover the main points that you want to cover? Because
Hmm.
I'm about to start going off on a whole bunch of stuff that I think you and I could probably talk about for 10 minutes after the show, because I want to make sure you get a chance to give all the points that are important, because, you know, no pun intended, but you could be on the move in 10 minutes, if you know what I'm saying, depending on circumstances. So is there anything that you want to make sure you say and inform people of, that just in case we end up going on a 25-minute rant about frequencies and things like this? Because I want
Yeah.
to talk about it, but I want to make sure we get everything out that's important to you, with regards to the exposure of this.
I'm kind of like you. I could rant in a million different directions about,
Hmm.
there's so much to cover. There is
Right.
so much to cover. I would say the most salient point, that I just really want to touch on, is if somebody is waking up or suspicious of the fact that they've been under mind control, or they have some memories, or they have inexplicable illness symptoms, um, just start to keep a journal and catalog patterns. Catalog patterns. Be really careful, though, not to make any sudden movements. Be aware of any reporting programming that's going on, because I had reporters that when I would start to remember things or whatever was going on, that would report basically everything to one of my handlers. And
Okay.
because that there were increased measures of torture in order to silence me. And so because so many people are waking up to the fact that they've been under this and coming out, I guess I would just encourage you also to listen to some of my stories on the Imagination podcast with Emma, videos
Okay.
of body memory activation, so that you can hear some of the mistakes I made in escaping the Illuminati, escaping what I'll call the New World Order or the beast system of mind control, the Matrix, however you want to put it. I made a lot of errors. And so I just want to make people aware of some of these booby traps.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. If we could, because I mean, just hitting us with, oh, escape the Illuminati, no big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, where do you even begin with telling that part of your story,
yeah,
Kadaya? I mean, it's one thing helping us
yeah.
understand the process of what you've went through, right? But I think we all kind of understand the young, vulnerable children involved in this. They can't, they're very vulnerable to all of this, right? But when we're talking about the story as you're aging, right? And you become less of a toy to be played with, but a woman to be weaponized, if that makes sense. Like, what was that like to notice that shift? Because I imagine when you talk about memories of the island and things like this, seeing the process of a victim go through being the thing that is abused and thrown away but
Yeah.
continue on. What were the memories from or was it all just horrific abuse? If I got it totally wrong, is it just from birth to when
Well,
you remember? I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry to ask you that. I'm sorry to ask you that, but just to help me understand the phases of your utilization, I guess is what I'm getting at.
So I had a happy veneer life. Like my shell life was happy. I
Of
had a
course,
great
I tell you.
relationship with my parents. Nobody would have suspected a thing was going on, and neither did I. I lived a
Hmm.
just very normal, very vanilla life, but then I also had multiple other lives. And so I always say I feel like I've lived for 1,000 years
Hmm.
across, a thousand different dimensions. But one of the things that really and that they program mothers specifically, right,
Yeah.
in this particular way. They want to make sure you have children so that so that you are not willing to accept the truth, because if you do, they're going to be taken away. And that's what happened to me, is my children were taken away because I remembered, and I was called delusional and
Oh my God.
a flight risk. And so my two children, it's one of the reasons I'm raising money on my GoFundMe, is to be able to fight for them, because they are still with the traffickers. And when they were taken from me, I was not given an opportunity to say goodbye. I was dumped off. Had lived in Washington State. I was dumped off in BC with nothing but the clothes on my back and one other change of clothes, um, and not given anything. I was served a protective order, a divorce. My husband just called to report that he was divorcing me, and it was my worst nightmare. That's every mother's
Okay.
worst nightmare.
I'm just going to take both of us off screen for a second. I want to ask you a couple of questions, but I don't want to give any of these monsters the opportunity to feed upon your emotion here. At what point do you realize everyone in your life is a handler and part of this?
And I definitely don't mind also if you show
And
my face.
yeah,
It's
no, I'm sorry because as soon as you said at the start of this you were married, I was like, oh my God,
yeah, I was married.
Has she realized yet? Like, has it clicked? Like, and it was instant sadness, right?
Mm.
Because that's what we're talking about here, man.
I tried to
Like,
take my husband with me. When these memories came back, I said, "Listen, this is both of us. We're both programmed multiples. You don't remember yet, but I do." And this look of horror and panic and fear and recognition deep in his soul crossed his eyes. And I said, "I just want you to know right away, I forgive you. Um, I do. I forgive you, but we need to get ourselves and our children safe." And I said, "I am not well. I need to take a couple of weeks to sort through what the heck I'm going to do. So I had made plans to go and stay with somebody and just figure out what the hell was going on and what I was going to do about it. And it was during that time that I was slapped with a protective order and a divorce and forbidden from returning home. My stuff was never sent. I didn't have a car. I had no money. My bank account was cut off. So they just kind of wanted me to be destitute in order to activate
Okay.
omit programming, which is suicide programming.
Yeah. So you've just done it again, because the one part of this that becomes financially unviable is every one of you has a paid government agent that pretends to be your husband or wife. That's the part where it's like the budget, the control. Someone's going to say something. But if you've got two victims and one of their alters is, you probably, whatever, if he had noticed first, I bet you would have taken the kids because your alter would have came in and taken over the ship. Do you see what I mean? I wonder if both of you had that in you.
I
And it
almost,
was just you got to the realness first. So his programming is to go, okay, now we kickstart the version of me that sees you as a crazy person, and I'm going to be against you. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
yep, yep. That's exactly what they're doing. And I had horrible insomnia for the majority of my marriage, specifically since I'd had children. So I'd been married for 15 years. I had been dealing with insomnia for 7 years, and I didn't understand why I was so afflicted. Um, but after, even in my state of destitution, and thankfully the Lord has been taking care of me and providing for my needs on this journey of the exodus I've been on. I slept for the first time in my life without aid, without any aid. The insomnia ended because, and the memories came back that he had actually been strangling me in the night once a month for 7 years on my menses because of the power and life force that they believe and they do gain through witchcraft from the blood of the woman
Mm-hmm.
in this process. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I was no longer being strangled at night, I was able to sleep, but still going through like unfathomable grief of wondering what my children were being told about me, not able to have said goodbye, or like I all I ever wanted to do was be a mom. That's my number one thing, my number one priority. My children were everything. I had raised children for 10 years, but he was an agent. He was an agent, and our marriage was arranged, right? Like we thought we had chosen each other and fallen in love, but
Yeah.
we
But,
we were
but you were
actually,
both wrong. But this is the thing. You were both wrong because people in
yeah,
the side chat, I need to just answer one more blunt question, because there's a big difference between a handler and two survivors programmed to
yeah,
police each other. And whichever one of them becomes the whistleblower, the other one has got an alter that will spark to action. So it's not a
yes.
case of, oh, her husband was a handler. It's a case of these are two victims running on different layers of coding. Okay.
Yes. And it's important, even
Dude,
especially
this
for
is,
forgiveness, right? Like I think, okay, I remember horrific memories of his abuse, the strangulation,
mhm,
being raped, sodomized, all of these things. But then, like, what about my own parts that were
mhm.
handling him? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they do this, and we were
It's a
actually,
Jesus thing all over again. It's a Jesus thing all over again. It's as a kid, put your faith in Jesus. He'll protect you. And now it's you've met someone. You put your faith in them. The whole thing is set up so their hands are away from it. There's no handlers. There's no government agents. It's pre-programmed victims of this horror that are then
Mhm.
designed to destroy each other if they dare to seek the truth. This is mad, Kadaya, right?
Yes,
Because all of this is now you've cleared a fog of about 6 years of conversations with me, with
good.
different people, and you've brought it all together.
They even show they like so we were programmed to play out this dynamic and this cycle from childhood.
Hmm.
Um, so from around the ages of 9 and 10, we were matched by the cult to be programmed in parallel ways in order to play out this dynamic when it was eventually time for us to get married. But it goes even deeper than that, Sean. They will even program, and they did this, program your children to handle the mother.
Of course. Of
Right,
course.
right.
Of course, like
Yeah,
everything's controlled.
it's just so deep
Do you know what
and
it's like? Do you know what it is? It's a Russian doll. That's how I would describe this whole MK Ultra. It's a Russian doll.
you
And
know
it
what I
starts
did?
off with the little baby, the little tiny you, and
Yeah,
then the shell's put on. Pop
you know
it in
what I did
again.
in my psychosis? You know what I did in my psychosis? What they call a psychosis. You know what they called a psychosis, which was
Yeah.
just memory flooding, and I wasn't believed. But I did in my I was throwing out everything in my all kinds of things in my house, as a part of my unraveling. And I remember I looked at these Russian nesting dolls that I had from a collection of them from an antique shop, and I
Mm-hmm.
looked at them and I saw my parts. I saw all the layers of parts inside those dolls, and I just
Mm-hmm.
that's a representation of mind control. Those are my
Mm-hmm.
instincts, right down to the little baby, and I'm just trying to, I can't escape, right? So part of the madness of what I was going through was basically trying to cleanse my environment, as if somehow there would be relief through that. Of course there wasn't. I just had to get away. But like, yeah, that's a great representation.
Is there anything to do with colors? Something to
Oh
do with
yes.
colors, right? And how
Oh,
prevalent was that with you?
yes, very prevalent. There's a very specific shade of kind of an
Orange,
avocado
oh,
lime green that's
right?
used.
Okay. What about orange?
Orange is, yeah, orange is definitely used.
Okay.
There a lot of children that aren't able to fracture well are diagnosed with autism. And
Mm-hmm.
the most popular color among those who have been diagnosed with autism, and I was also on that spectrum, is the color orange. Because it is they have been conditioned to love and be attracted to
Mm-hmm.
that color. What have you learned about the color program?
Nothing but my weird gifts. I'm just getting Russian dolls and orange squares rammed into my brain like I needed to bring them up. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a Christian. I am a very proud pagan witch, and I'm one of those people that would be burnt at the stake years ago. And that was being I don't
Orange.
want to people know who like how I am with this world, right? And for the last half an hour, there's been a wait right here. Okay. And it's Russian dolls and orange squares, Russian dolls and orange squares. And the Russian dolls thing, we figured that out. That was the analogy. And the orange is the other thing. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I'm being made to ask you.
There's a really good post. There's a really good post that would probably explain this better than I could
Mhm.
on a Telegram channel by the name of Gabby Chung. And I sometimes link her stuff on my own Telegram at the Song of the Lamb, the Second Exodus, pertaining to revolutionary programming and the activation of sleeper cells for violence to create political unrest,
Mhm.
but also to activate certain political dogma that people, or even just the masses, have been programmed by in order to carry out, in order to bring about the controlled demolition of our society.
100%. If they're making weird, like systems just to satisfy grotesque urges, okay? The side project of that is world domination. It's toppling governments. It's the spies. It's the assassins. It's all of that. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
just going to go, oh well, we could make assassins, but let's not bother. Do you see what I mean? Like
I'm
it's that level of madness.
Agent Orange.
Um,
It's all
it
part of
really, really is. It really, really is. And for me, discussions with people like yourself become less of an interview. It becomes more like we're standing in a room joining red string with thumbtacks to pull things together. And that's why I wanted to make sure we covered all the points that you wanted to cover, because for me, my journey into this is understanding how to defeat and recognize and see patterns and see how to pull the whole stack of cards down. No big deal, right?
it.
So what would you be? What would your one thing you would be? What was the one thing you feel is the most misconstrued part when people go in to try and understand your story or MK Ultra survivors as a whole?
The misconstrued part would be the level of risk that we are actually taking for coming out and speaking the truth and revealing our experiences about this. I had just shared some footage on my channel of a survivor who had helped me escape some of my more recent handlers, and he was just thrown into jail and is facing felony charges because of a setup that I witnessed and filmed, which I'm also going to share on the channel, to activate his Delta programming and nail him for a felony.
Mm,
And it's a very exaggerated charge, right? And so they're trying to either, saddle him with 3 to 7 years in prison or transfer him to a mental institution, right? Because we had been defecting and deprogramming together at this location to such a successful degree that there was such a serious intervention done. And we had anticipated that
mm,
this would happen, right? And, it did. And so I've been touting his story alongside this as well. And so
mhm,
the reason I say that is because it's so important for people to support survivors and the work that we do, because the
mhm,
risk that we have taken is to lose everything, and we suffer internal
mhm.
sabotage from our own programming and just speaking. Like before an interview like this, I deal with seizures. I deal with a
Mhm.
horrible nausea, um, discombobulation, scrambling programming. But
Yeah.
like God always takes over when I need to speak the truth, because the truth is everything to God, and it should be everything to us.
Do you know when you said that the most powerful thing is honesty or authenticity? I forgot to mention there's a reason why that is. There's no known enemy to the truth. It's the
Mhm.
only thing in this world that cannot be taken down is the truth. And I think you nailed that. And like again, it's been a lot of moments tonight, Kadaya, where you've really brought things together. And I think people need to really focus on the stories that people like you and other survivors tell that have the relevant connections, because there's so many people that, whether it's survivor stories or anything else, that want to piggyback off trauma, right? They want to emulate. We've seen a whole spiel of this after the lockdown, where we had TikTok DID and people were selling altars, and it was just like, what we're doing here, people. Like what we're doing here. And do you feel like social media has helped people understand, or do you feel like your trauma gets hijacked for clout by people? I mean, it has to happen, right? Have you had any experiences where you've had to either call people out or you've just been like, mm-mm,
I have been really blessed in my experience testifying personally, but it
mm-hmm,
does happen. You're absolutely right. It does happen. I think, yeah, social media is both a curse and a blessing in a lot of
mm-hmm,
ways. I'm incredibly grateful for it because of the community that I've been able to find and participate in building, like-minded people, who and because we need to help each other, right? Like so much of healing happens in community. And what happens to a lot of survivors is because of fear and being constantly hunted, um, is isolation, is isolation. And
mm-hmm,
it is harder to heal that way. And so on one hand, yeah, it makes us more vulnerable to predators who might come, someone who might come to prey on a system like,
mm-hmm,
knowing that I am multiple. But in the end, I continue just to trust that the truth prevails, the frequency of the truth, and the
mm-hmm.
protection of my God for doing the right thing and shining a light on this is worth any risk. Like I would die for this cause. So I'm going to keep speaking no matter what.
Listen. I just want you to know this platform is available to you anytime. Right, anytime where you're settled and you just want to come in and reiterate things, or you want to dial in on something, because the way you communicate this subject works with my spectrum. Like, I'm hearing you and I am fully understanding what you're saying. And I know that sounds what my job is, okay? But you brought things together that I've not been able to see for years. And
Okay.
me having stuff rammed in my face by my guides to ask you is weird enough. Okay. So I would love to just make sure you know you can quite happily send an email to Sarah or contact us and say, Thursday, this time, let's get it. Because I want to know more.
Okay.
Okay. I want to know more. I want to know, because the whole handler thing, well, that was the thing I couldn't get my head around. It's like, so
Yeah.
we've got what, 50 years of dudes employed to be evil mother fudgers, and none of them have come forward and been like, so here how this goes. Nah, because they're all victims,
Yeah, there is. Well, I think first of all, thank you. I appreciate that because and there are like what we should. I have so many stories. You know,
right?
like, yeah, I can go into some more like anecdotes of some really harrowing things that I've been through this. But yeah, the whole handling thing. There's an interesting show that I was surprised reveals as much as it does, called Severance. It has 2 seasons available now and has some pretty well known actors in it. Of course, we also have to be aware that part of this is programming, right? They released this show as a part of our programming. But I think if you go into it aware of it and you want to understand a little bit more about how some of this works, I do actually really recommend the television show Severance. It is brilliantly done.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Listen, I just want to reiterate to everyone, like, survivor stories and individuals like Kadaya, this is real. And you even said yourself, it would be a lot better if you were just a crazy person, right? Like back
yeah,
then, it would have been, because you're, of course, that would be better for you, you
hmm
know. But here you are in the shadow of all of this. I'm just so grateful that you're so strong and standing up and saying all of this. Now, anything that you want to say to anybody out there, right, that might one day watch this back, that you may want them to hear, you know, I'd want you to have the opportunity to be able to say anything, just in case, you know,
yeah.
anybody out there sees this. And if you want to say anything to them, please do so before we wrap it up, you know.
I would just extend hope in the darkness. This is a very difficult terrain for the majority of us to navigate. So first I want to say to any listeners, thank you. Thank you for being willing to navigate this difficult and very dark terrain. Um, but also just remember to focus on where there is hope. There is absolutely hope. God has a plan for all of this. It's hard to imagine the depths of evil that are happening in the world around us. So many people come to me and they're like, I'm learning about this. My eyes are open now. But
Hmm.
that I feel helpless. I feel
Hmm.
so helpless because it's so knit into the cellular fabric of our lives, our bodies, our
Hmm.
society, our history, our experiences. So they think like, what can I do? What can I do to help? So I always direct people back to the Lord. I always direct people back to his truth. And I say, like, come and join my community as well, because we are, yeah, while we are navigating some hellish horrors, we're also having a rollicking good time. And there's so much to celebrate. There's so much healing happening.
Hmm.
We're learning from each other, and really like God is raising an army right now, and it's a really exciting time, as horrific as it is to be in. And so that's part of the hope that I would extend today.
It's a pretty good way to close the show today. I'm not going to lie. If you got a GoFundMe that's active right now,
I do, yeah, and I
can
think
I? Can you make? Can before we end the show? Can you just type it out or send it to me so that I can get it spammed and added to the
I
description, please? Because I don't think it was sent over in the links that you sent. So
and
do you?
I'll pop it into the comments as well. But if
Yeah.
you were to Google, if you were to just
Yeah. Yeah.
Google Fund Me, and it's the Quickening Project. The Quickening Project is a dormant project for me at the moment, but that's just what my GoFundMe is still titled as. So GoFundMe, the Quickening Project, it's called Help Kadaya. And I share a little bit about any donations that you would make, what the type of thing that they will go towards as well.
Yeah, just so you know, there's a band called the Quickening Project. It's not them. Okay.
It's
So when you
yeah,
Google
yeah,
search this, it's
that is me.
not the band, the Quickening Project. It's the one with the two hands on it, like this, I would imagine, right? It's this one. Yeah.
But
Okay,
we were
good.
a band. We were. I was. It was. I am a singer and songwriter, and
Okay.
so I had produced an album, but unfortunately, as part of the punishment upon the finishing of
Mm.
that album with a handler, it was
You're,
revoked.
you're not allowed a music career. What are you talking about? Like, what? You can't be
Yeah.
going through MK Ultra and then be thinking you're going to have a regular career, mate. No, 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 no. Come on now. Come on now. It's to the barn for you, Kadaya. To the
Yes.
barn. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's to the
To my
barn.
office, you guys.
Right. It's one of them, man.
It.
Like, but we'll make sure that gets splashed out everywhere. Anything anybody can do, make sure you do that. Before we end this, Kadaya, please stick around because I want to just have a couple more minutes of your time. But listen, thank you to everyone who's been watching, and I apologize for the late start. I just want to address two things before we go. Right, Ron is not lost. Ron does not believe in blind faith. Ron was not religious until he had a profound religious experience. Ron is on very good terms with a lot of gods. Okay, I choose to follow my gods. I'm very fond of Jesus because I would leave my children with him. Okay, like of all the gods, like Jesus could babysit my kids, no problem. And that is why I know he's a good one for people to follow. One of my gods has one eye and is a war god who, if you die in battle, will take you to an afterlife where you continue to chop people up and feast. That's that's a bit heavy for me. Okay, it's not really for a lot of people, but that's the path I'm on. So I'm very much not confused, and I do not need anyone's gratification or belief in anything. But I need to be clear with you all on that. Also, Ron is very interested in the stuff that's going on in his country, and there's a big video coming out on that this week. So I just wanted to clear that up. Kadaya, thank you so much for being here. Please stick around. I would like to have a couple more minutes of your time. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to the channel. Thank you to everyone watching. Please like and share this. Share the GoFundMe and all of Kadaya's socials. And for me, Ron Swanson, as always, I will see you in the next one, guys. Peace.